Okay, hello everyone. I'm Mia. I'm from Ladies Taipei, and I'm glad to visiting Ladies Lisbon here. And today I'm going to present how you use automation integrate with Azure Machine Learning Studio. So as Vicky mentioned before, some of you already use Azure Machine Learning, and some of you work with the machine learning, but maybe you don't have so much experience for Azure Machine Learning Studio. So today I will have a brief introduction about the studio works, and also if you want to start with R, integrate with Machine Learning Studio, how you can start with that. So yeah, this is today's agenda and something about me. And I come from Ladies Taipei, and it's also like a community for ladies and learn ladies together. And in Taiwan, we only have monthly meetup for every month, so it's not so often. But for the guys who want also learn language, we also have our users group. So if you're a man, you are also welcome to join our user group. So in the user group, it's also men and women you can just come. And if you are the guy that you really want to join our ladies meetup in Taipei, then you have to be the speaker, then you can just come. And sometimes we will have meetups in different companies, locations. I think it's really nice a chance you can talk with people in different company, and also you can learn more about the different company, how they work and how they use automation, and it's really nice to meet different places. And during my this time visit in Europe, I also went to Our Ladies Berlin to have a talk. So during my this visit, I visited Berlin and Lisbon as well. So in Taiwan, I'm only the member of the Our Ladies Taipei, but I also own a community with my partners. It's called Azure Taiwan Community. So the main topic is about if you use Azure web apps or database, or you use Redis cache or Azure function app, sort of like this, you can just come and have a short talk. So about my work, I work as a data consultant for different startup projects. So for example, one is a travel agency. We work together to improve the customer's experience. Like if they want to book an order from our systems, so they might get stuck at the few steps in the web app or in the app. So I will just use some of the monitor things to help. We will find out that people stop in certain of the steps, and we can improve by that on and move on more. So part of my work is to help the user experience get better, and also I work with a startup project. It's about hotel intelligence systems. So I also built out systems through analytics. To if you have a lot of sensors in this room, so when people come inside, you will know some people get inside. If people want to higher temperature, cold temperature, you want more sunshine or not, and the system will help you to adjust your system more and get more economic when you're monitoring your hotel management. So that's basic about my work. So I also like traveling. If you want to contact me, no matter it's about the topic today or it's later you want to visit Taipei, the community is always open for everyone. Okay, so we start to today's topic. So some of you might work with as data scientist or data consultant, or you try to be one of these work process. So in my work experience, and this tool is by Microsoft documentation, so you can find it online as well. and I just make a short introduction about this. So in the beginning, when you make a client or you make a manager of you, you might have to think about what are we going to ask our data set. So in the beginning, like one of the manager I work with, he just said like, oh, since you have all the data already, then maybe I can ask all the questions about the data. So he just said, I can ask all the questions. So we just got stuck because he don't know what's going to ask about the data set. So what are we going to do the next? So for me, I will just ask them about what's their strategy for their marketing things or business development things. So for example, they might want to know in our system that our system is a bit like Eventbrite or Meetups. So there were people hold some events, and there were also people that be attending to our system. So at that time, marketing people would like to know there might be some potential organizers haven't been fine because they are just like small groups that hold small events. So at that time, we just figured out that we might set some of the standards. So for example, if you hold an event and almost all the events participant is over 80%, that means you are really good organizers, right? So for this kind of the scenario things or domain know-how things, it's really important when you talk with marketing people or business people, and we have to manage it to make it into our like data analysis system. So it's really important in the beginning. You have to understand what your business and what is your service you're working with. Okay. So the second part, you will see your data set. So like in the beginning, some of the data will be like raw data, just the random numbers, or like ID numbers, or like date time. So sometimes when you have different questions to your data set, for example, you might want to know that in this season, like spring, summer, fall, and winter, you might want to know how your customer behavior, if it influenced by season or influenced by some holidays, for example, Christmas, New Year's. So you might want to know like more details about your customers and also more details about your questions. So you might see your raw data and you will figure it out. You have to do a little bit like cleaning or let's say formatting a little bit to make your analysis get better. So after that, we will go through like modeling. We will choose some algorithms to help the things be like categorized or some like model fitting in our system. And after that, you can use like, for example, if we demo by today's Azure Machine Learning Studio, you can deploy it as a like API you can co-work with. So for people that usually work with API, you will feel like familiar with this kind of service. And in the end, you will deliver your like analytics service, like modeling things, and you will talk to your customer or you talk to your manager to see if this is the result they want. If not, there were also some ways that you can improve your system, because every time when you deliver a product, you have to make sure your quality is good and the result is what people want. And if you found that during the whole process, you found out that maybe some data is like overfitting or it's like outliers, is really different from the normal modeling you already have, you might think about that maybe some issues exist in your system. Okay. We will do some brief ideas about the business understanding, knowing the data, so we change the data format, and doing the modeling, hopefully make the customer happy. So we will see the tools we are using today is Azure Machine Learning Studio. So some of you have the experience with Azure Machine Learning Studio, it's very surprising. Yeah. and some haven't started yet. So I will just brief introduction about this platform. Um, for me, the good way to start with Machine Learning Studio because like in the beginning, some people will think about machine learning or deep learning is a good things to start to work with data, but I don't know how to start. So when you use like the machine learning studio, it has like GUI, really friendly interface. So you will see like in the beginning, you might have read some data and split data to one is the testing and one is for modeling. And then you will see like how the system will store your system or in the end you can deploy it to the service. So no matter you are the beginners or you already have some experience, you already have some flow in your mind. You know, like after first step, I get the data, and the second step, what should I do next? Because when people are learning new things, you always like get stuck there. It's like, oh, what should I do now? But for this system, it's quite friendly. You can just use GUI at the beginning. You can just have the roughly ideas about the code flow. And just like we learn the programming, we will replace some bugs, and then you can replace with the module you want. So you can imagine that in the beginning you can learn from the GUI, but time after that you find out maybe the dataset is not the one, so you might import from yourself by using our languages. So you may replace the parts they already default and using our language to read some data or clean the data as you want. So I think that's quite convenient for people that want to learn machine learning. So I will use smaller. Before we start the experiment, I can introduce you some of the modules in Machine Learning Studio. So, as I mentioned, if you want to do like modeling things, you always have to start with your dataset. So you can always import, no matter it's from your already the set dataset or the things that you want to import. Or if you don't have any dataset, you can also start with the sampling in their system. And also, like for me, sometimes when I use the modules in Azure Machine Learning Studio, you can see there are some circles like here. For example, here, if you want to execute or script, and you always find like some circles, they're really fancy that you can really just drag a line and you can just link to the next step. But like in the beginning, when you just see the modules, you see the circles, but you don't know what are you going to link. Since you already have the modules, so you might want to know more that Microsoft, they have all the documents for each modules. So for example, for me, like every time when I start learn a new scenario or business model, I will just try to approach some of the scenarios they already have it and try to learn from that. And after that, you may find out there's some difference between your case and the case that's demonstrated, and you will have to read more documentation. I think that most of us will learn like every time when we do like programming or we have to analyze new things, that's the thing we're going to happen. So, okay, start with our first examples. You can use the mini maps because you have like online game, you always have mini maps to help you. here. So I'm gonna try to keep this one. So in the beginning, we have to read our database. So for example, in this one, when you choose that execute or script, you can write all your hard code here. But in this interface, it's not that debug friendly. So I almost use like R Studio in the beginning to make sure all the things well and put it here. So the dataset we use here is from the library MSS. So for each library in our packages, you will know there are some default dataset inside to make sure that if you don't know what kind of data will match this library, you always have something to check. So for example, in this one, we use Boston, the housing price, the dataset, as this example. So yeah. So when you got your data set, in the beginning you have to know like there are something like different schemas, what kind of schemas you have, is it like continuously or discrete, like different categories in your data set. So for example, in this one, we will see like for this data set, we will see some information about the housing price in Boston area, and there are something might influence the housing price. So if you can see clearly, or should I just make bigger? Yeah. Okay. So you will see like for some features might influence your result. For example, it's like the capital crime rate, or you can see like the average number, the room for each place that you want to buy, or it's like the age of it, or the text. So in the beginning, you will see a lot of schemas, no matter it's from the data set you already have or you use in your company. So all the schema you have, some is related to the questions that you want to ask, but some is like totally, you can just ignore them. So for example, if you want to predict a student's rate, you might have their student ID number, their maybe their height, their birthday, how many hours they study a week, or average for the past 3 months their grade. So if you have several features to describe a student, that you might figure out that in our data set, some of the feature is useful and some are not. Okay. So after you knowing the data set, like for example, this one is about like the Boston housing price. And then you might want to know like if we can find like some modeling where showing us, for example, this one is like linear regression. We will find out that the most proper modeling for them to see if this housing price is like too high or is like too low or is like something that you can manage with it. So after you loading your like R data set, and you can take some of the data into the track model. And for this example, we just use all the data to do the training. But some before that, you can use split data to split the percentage that you want. For example, like 60% or 70% as your training, and another one will be your testing. So for this example, we can just run a little bit. So for this time, if you run your experiment, the time will depend on the calculate complexity or the how many data you already have. So it might take some time and also depends on your internet speeding. So now the experiment is finished running. So we might see like some modeling here. There is a function that I really like is the visualization. For example, you can see like in our data set, you can see the distribution in your data. So you might know in the beginning that some data might have some special distribution like this one, maybe like normal or like some of like exponential distribution. So in the beginning, you can see some of them have some pattern and some are not. So like in the end, you will see like for this modeling, you will score a level to see for the average price you already have. So there are some models you can take for this example. So for this left-hand side, this area, you will see is the modules from the default set. And the right-hand side here, you can also write your own module by using like R script. So for example here, if you write your R script to have a new model of it, and you might want to know how to compare that model that you already write by R languages and compare to the modules that by Machine Learning Studio. So after you run the whole things, you see the green check, and then you will see. So for each step in the experiment, you can always see like after this step, what are going to happen in your system. For example, after we run the input data, we get the data for here. So if you do some cleaning data or data formatting, and after the script, you will see like different data results in the end. So for this one. So after you finish this one, you can publish it to like a web service. For example, this one. So you will see like change a little bit. I will make it bigger. So if you finish your experiment and when you want to publish online, you might use the deploy web service here and to see your web service. And when you publish online, it will work as one of the web service you have. And publish it. So after you publish it, you will see one here that this one will be like API key you can work with, or if you want to if you want to test some data, you can use the methods by like request here. Because this one we don't select any input, so you won't need any of it. But for other examples, you may need like the test here, you can input your test data as the format you input in your data set, like the same data format. Or you can use Excel to help you to manage with that. So it's basically that if you publish your experiment, you can also know how to co-work with that. And also if you want to do some configuration about your API, you can also see from here. So the first demonstration is about like the first one. If you want to code the dataset, you can just take the execute R script to help you to just take a default dataset from library, or if you want to import from no matter like Azure database or other, you can just choose whatever you want. And the flow of building an experiment to an API. So that's the first part for our demonstration. And the second part, I will briefly introduce a part is called feature engineering. It's also a part that our languages can cover with machine learning studios, and it's quite convenient in this way. So for me, like sometimes you work as a data consultant or data analysis in a company or co-work with others. You might have some scenarios is that some people is from business background or some domain know-how, they know something really well. So some people, they might work in a hotel for several years already, so they might know that some people, when they check in, for example, that people from Europe or people from Asia, they might have different expectations about their rooms. So if you have time and you have a lot of money, you can do your experiments for a long time, that is just fine. But if you just have limited time or just limited money, you have to do the prediction very fast to meet your boss or manager's expectation. So in this time, you might co-work with someone that don't know anything about programming, but they know the things really well. Okay, so in this step, we will just code feature engineering. But why is called feature? So we can think about that. Just as I mentioned before, if we want to predict a student's grade, there might several features we can describe these students. So for the same case, if we want to predict, for example, like Titanic data set that people already familiar with, we have a lot of attributes, a lot of features that you can describe a passenger, right? So for this time, if you say that the ticket time that you bought, is it relative if this person will survive from the accident? So apparently not. So for people that research about like the accident happening or research about like special areas, they might know something that we don't know. So after interview, after discussion with them, we will know some attribute that is really important. So for example, during like Christmas or before Christmas, maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks, then more people will tend to buy more things. But it's not exactly time, but my few weeks before that. But how many weeks? So for people that work in the convenience store or work in the retailing store, they will know more than us. And for this time, we will just add the numbers in our analysis system, or we will select some necessary feature and unnecessary feature during our analysis. Because when we do the like modeling things, some people will know if you add one more attribution, you will just extremely add on more time to do the experiment things. So, what kind of scenarios that you will use like feature engineering? So one is the thing that I mentioned is about maybe the student ID and grades is like totally unrelated to each other. And some of, for example, the first one that here I list is good day or bad day. So when I come to visit Europe, I found out that because I arrived in April, so everyone was feel really happy to see the sunshine here in Europe. But in Taiwan, like every girls want to be really look wider because it means that you always stay in the air conditioned room. You feel like you are so like a princess. So it's like different culture, right? So for people from Asia, we will think a good day maybe it's cloudy, a bit sunshine, but not so many. But people from Europe, especially in April, everyone was so eager like to have sunshine. So the good day is means sunshine. So in this case, like you will have a definition for good days and bad days in Europe. It means the humidity maybe is just a little bit drier than the winter, and the temperature is might be like 25 or 20 to 25 is really cozy because you almost have sunshine. You can work out with your like have a walk or have some coffee with your friend. I mean, it's good. But in Taiwan, if like over 25 degrees, like something like 25 to 30, we will think it's really hot weather outside. We might just want to rather stay home and just have some online chat with our friends. So the definition in this case, so we will know if you work in a hotel, you will need to meet a lot of people from different countries, Europe, Asia, or America, or South America, everywhere. So something you might know as a data analysis, so you have to ask them like little things about this. So for example, when you do the analysis, you might have a feature means good day or bad day. The good and bad is calculated from the humanity and the temperature, and also depends on the people from different area. So for this part will be the feature engineering. You will calculate what is good, what is bad for your customer. So, and also for some scenarios, like if you work in apartment, like you work in the school, or you work in the convenience store, that might have some different definition for us adults. For example, like we have different ages, like in Europe, in Lisbon, maybe people can drink after 18. Yeah, some countries like after 20, so it's like you have to wait for a long time. But still, for this kind of the standards, something that you have to make decision to see if this one is available for alcohol or not, or if this person can get into the theater or not. Some kind of this tech is also depends on the geographical things information you have to take before you do the analysis. So. I try with another experiment to show and deal with this. So we take a retail forecasting as an example here. So here we can use our languages to combine two data sets. One is my the timestamp and the value that this store the incomes of their stores. And another data set is about the first one will be the store item and the things that you're selling, and the value will be the selling things, but the value in the other data set will be the old income of this time. So we will do some data reformatting to put them together. So if you are really familiar with it, you will see we might just put the two data sets together here and add more some the name of it or some other features. So take some time to wait for the experiment. Okay, so when the time is running, I can also introduce another things. It's not really related to this one, but it's also another activities we will hold in our latest Taipei. So recently we are really focused on studying this machine learning studio, or some people are really to coding, they don't like to see the GUI stuff, they think it's quite fancy. So no matter you are which style you are, it's fine. But in the end, what we really want to know is make a good modeling. We want to predict some interesting stuff. So we will have events for the Kaggle competition. So some of you might heard of Kaggle. So in this summer, I think it's about July or August, I think the Olympic Committee will contact you everyone as well, because we also want to have this hackathon everyone around the world can go to the Kaggle competition, and everyone have the goal to attend the competition. So at the same time, everyone learn more about the machine learning things. So recently, we have several study groups about how to analysis and different scenarios, because some people that were in weather forecasting area, like air pollution and if it's typhoons coming and sort of things like that, they made a group of this, and some of the people is introduced the basic function, no matter it's on R Studio or Machine Learning Studio for people that just start learning. So I think it's quite a good way to have a community that people can always learn together. Okay, finished running. So we can see that so after we import two data sets and we put them together. So you can click the visualization to see. So your data already be put together and calculate the average. For this time, the average income for it. Here. So after we put two data sets together, so there's something that we might want to know if you want to do the retail forecast. For example, you can see here, you might want to know the time features, or you might introduce interesting in like the season or some other holidays, I guess here. New Year's Day, Labor Day, Thanksgiving. So after you do some reformatting about the things that you already have. So for example, the row data should be like the year, the month, and the dates typed together. But you only want to know if it's in the holidays for Christmas or holidays for New Year's, then you have to reformat it and give them definition for that. And you will see like if it's holiday or if it's like it's Christmas or somewhat. So after that, you will see there will be more and more features like I'm going here. So it's like if it's New Year's Day, yes or no. And also Thanksgiving Day, yes or no. So when I do the analysis things and also sometimes I do data visualization, I will have need a kind of questions because sometimes you want to do like fancy infographic things. So you might want to select a pie chart and the other way will just show on the Labor Day what's going to happen. So in this case, you always have to clean your data from the original one to this kind of the data set. So you have to show if it's the Labor Day or it's not. So when you do the select, and the other graphic will just show that interactive, like in this way. Okay. So this part, when we select from the normal row data from is it Labor Day, is it Christmas Day, for this step we call it feature engineering because we make the original row data to some feature that you might interested in. And the second part that you might want to select something that you think is important to hear. So you just select them. And so sometimes if you are familiar with some of the algorithms, you will find out some algorithms is more fit to some kind of the data set if you have like normal distribution or if you have exponential distribution or other categorized or discrete numbers. Every different data set have the different scenarios to work with the algorithms. So for example, in this case, we will replace this. Okay. The value here is look like the explanation distribution. So we might want to know like we will take a log of it. So after we take here function and then we see the data again. So it might back to the value as we have, almost like normal distribution for that. So after we do some reformatting and do some mathematics operation, then after these few steps, and then you can start afterwards that when you want to do the modeling things. So let's get back to the slides. So we can do a brief recap about when you need feature engineering. It's the time that when you want to predict something and you have a lot of feature, some is useful and some is unuseful. So you might get some feedback, no matter it's from your experiment. It shows your model is awful, so you might return your feature. Or other way is you have someone who's really know your domain, then the guy or the woman will talk with you that you might set some standards or you might set some categories for your data set to improve your experiment more faster or more precisely. And if you want to do the feature engineering in the machine learning studio, you can always just use the same way, but you write in the R studio, but you have to test the part that you really need in that. So I think that's all my presentation for today. So it's always welcome you can visit our community, our ladies, Taipei. I should add our users group also, but you can find it at the meetup, so it's fine. And the Android Taiwan community, and this is my email, Twitter, or something that you might contact me. Yeah, I think that's all for my sharing. Thank you.
Does anyone have questions for Mia? Now is the time to ask before we go to the coffee break.
Sorry, Mia. Thank you for your presentation. I was wondering, how do you share your work so it's reproducible by somebody else?
Okay. That's really precise. Actually, the workspace, if I want to co-work with you or others, it's really convenient that you can just share your workspace. So for me, it's Power is mine, and C3 is one of my friends. So if you want to share with your friends, we have to wait a bit. So you can share your workspace with others. So for me, if like my personal workspace, maybe I have 30 experiments or something, it's like too much. And from here, you can only create the default, the first one. But if you want to create the second one, you can use the Azure portal to create the new one. And there are two ways. One is the free that you can add on maybe 100 experiments with your friends or co-work together. And another one is you have to pay. But I think it's like if you have to use more than 100 experiments. But for my example, the default is already enough because sometimes we just want to know some proof of concept. So we use the UI to do the things quite fast. And then we make sure that this algorithm is work, then we might move on to like code more or do things more precisely. Yeah, I hope it answers your question.
That's fine, thank you.
Yeah. Is there any
So the first thing I want to ask you is about the linear map. When you step train the model, do you always have to specify the algorithm? So you have their linear regression. Can you change it?
Yes, there are some different algorithms here. So let's just check. So here, we have something for machine learning that you can evaluate your model, and also the algorithms you mentioned about. So, for example, if you want to do a classification here or regression, you can select different algorithms if you want. And also, there are one here, you can do the text analytics also and time series as you want. Yeah, because these two functions is, some people will have the scenarios, they will solve as with the algorithms together, but actually they put the time series and the text analysis outside that. Yeah. Any other?
So about the feature engineering.
Yes.
From your experience, would you say that it's better to use few but relevant features, or maybe some that are not as relevant, but like more features that are not as relevant, but together may make a difference and prevent it?
Yeah. So sometimes, as you mentioned, maybe we will select just some of the feature we already know that is really related to it. And sometimes we might want to know there are some data is like outliers. We might want to know if it's just one of it or just like several people already. So we might do some random things to see if it's like really overfitting. So for example, when you choose the algorithms and also when you choose the data, you can always select the data set you split. So if you want to know if it's overfitting, it's like in the beginning you should know your data, your sampling, if it's really present the big things you want to analysis. And the second part we will discuss like the feature in second step. So
Because when you all the features like all the holidays, I was thinking wouldn't it be better than to have just one feature like have a function is holiday with like a 0 and a 1 whether it is or it's not.
okay. So for example, as you mentioned, if we put several features, like if it's Christmas, Thanksgiving, we put maybe 3 or 4, or another one is like it's a holiday, just combined together. So it's
Main holiday.
yes, it's holidays. So for sometimes we will depend on what kind of question you're asking. So if you just want to ask if every time people have holiday, they just shop more. If your question is really simple, then we don't have to create this split for scenario things. But if you want to make sure like next season, so next season may be precise like September, November, so we might want to know several is located in the time. So we have to separate like different seasons. So I think also depends the questions you're asking.
Just one last question.
Yeah.
So let's say if I want to predict like foreigners' behavior, for instance, here in Portugal, like considering weather as a feature, do you think I should give more significance to where those foreigners come from and what kind of weather they therefore appreciate? Or is it fair to say that everybody likes a sunny day? What do you think?
You mean for the weather because the
Like
question?
if I'm trying to predict some people's behavior, considering weather as a feature, and I was thinking, do you think I should check where those people come from and what kind of weather they therefore appreciate, or is it fair to say that everybody likes the same thing?
So for example, that you want to see like the weather influence the people in Portugal area. So we will see like there are some features you might select. Maybe the good weather will make people will go out to have a outdoors coffee with their friends, or they might go to like sea surfing or some like outdoors activities, or something that other feature was like some people would choose to stay inside. And in this case, I'd say for some people's behavior, sometimes you can record and sometimes it's not. For example, that one of the case when we analysis the credit card behavior is always easy. You analysis some data you already have. Like people buy something because you already in your data set. But if the manager, the boss asks, how do I know people don't like our stuff? So you have to make some other benchmark or some other features to know the other groups of people and to make sure the whole analysis is complete. Does that make sense for you?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Yes, from my experience is always like this. Is sometimes when we select some data as sampling, and you might wondering if this sample data represent all the things that we want to research. For example, all the people in Portugal. Some people it's like local people, and some is just travelers. So if you want to analysis all the case you want to know, and the way that you analysis, the way you collect the data, is it already comprehensive the whole scenarios? If not, you have to find the other way. Otherwise, you will just go to the other. It's like go further than what you thought you. Yeah.
question. What would you recommend to someone that is starting to learn machine learning? Should a person start right away with Azure machine learning? Is there a free subscription to Azure?
For the Azure Machine Learning Studio, yes, it's free to, you can just revisit and you can just get a workspace for it. And the free subscription, you can get 100 experiments for yourself. So I think that's enough because for me, sometimes it's like over 20 and I can find the one that I want. So if you just the beginning that you want to learn is a good way to start because there are a lot of examples in gallery that you can find. Oh yeah, there's also one thing like when the first time like in really beginning when I want to do the virtual learning stuff, sometimes people are give me something that I don't have so much inspiration to ask the question about the data set, or sometimes I feel I don't know what to ask about the data set, then I will just come to see more scenarios. So for me, for example, I might want to know some movie in IMDb, if it's like a popular movie or it's not. For example, so I will choose some of the